term or word, etc., because there's a variety of understanding of what real lean is, and people do it in various different kinds of ways, and they get varied results. Most of them are left not satisfied with what they get. If you use lean manufacturing, manufacturing is actually how it was coined in the 1990s. Lean actually originates from Toyota. And when people put, what Toyota does and how it does together, they called it the Toyota production system. And the word manufacturing probably, comes out from the concept of Toyota production system. It actually is not related to production itself. The real way to call it would be a lean business process or Toyota's business process, okay? The philosophies and principles that originated there are so universal that you can apply it to any kind of business. I myself have done work in more than 30 different industry segments, very, very diverse, from very hardcore engineering to floriculture, from refractories to very high-end electronics, from software to food processing, pharmaceuticals, jewelries, watches, you name it. It can be, it's actually a way of how to think and conceive the best business process. It's a complete strategy work, okay? So when you become lean, when you successfully implement lean, it's the highest form of efficiency a business process can get. There is nothing known that is more efficient than, becoming lean. It beats all the kinds of other wall decoration certificates that one can aspire for. One of the reasons why, it is so successful today and every organization aspires to become lean is because there's a difference between conventional thinking and lean thinking. The conventional thinking always thinks in terms of silos, just into patches, like just to, use a very random example, like you measure the efficiency of a machine or a motor or whatever, in lean, what we actually do is we go way behind that. And we look at the entire value stream. And it's because of this particular thinking that the lean thinking or the lean process can actually eliminate a lot of wastes that are not supposed to happen but are happening. And waste is, something that should not happen, but it happens. And why do people allow it to happen? Because people are used to doing things the way they have been doing before, or somebody else has been doing it before them. So when they see it, they think it's normal. They are not able to see the waste. So you need to develop, lean eyesight, or wear lean spectacles to be able to see through the process what are the different kinds of wastes that actually happen. And these are industry segment specific. In manufacturing, there are 7 well-known wastes, but when you go to different other areas, there are a lot of other ways of how this can be measured. What do we do in conventional thinking? When we see a problem, we solve the problem, right? We call this as eliminating a problem. But in lean, we call this, a very dumb thing to do. Why do we call it dumb thing to do? Is because in the very first thinking, we have allowed the problem to be there. We may not have seen it before, but then we see it now and we eliminate it. So the two most important, places where wastes can be eliminated. And when I say waste, waste also connects to all those things which you guys are talking here today about carbon emission, things that can contribute to carbon emission. So it also includes that. So why, we call this as waste elimination as dumb? It's because once the waste is there and you are able to see it, you are able to see the problem behind it, using the tools that are available to solve problems, we can solve the problem. But that's not the intelligent thing to do. Why that's not the intelligent thing is because the process before has been faulty. And because the process before has been faulty, the result has been, has generated a problem. So problem prevention is what we do in Lean. We think through the process end to end, from start to finish. Whether, if you take an organization, we start from the customer end till the last vendor. Every single micro process is well thought of. Everything that is not required to be there is removed. You apply the same thinking to product manufacturing, to product design. You see, more than 90% of the problems can be prevented at two stages, the product design and the process design. And when these are not perfected, you will end up with facing some kind of a problem, some inefficiency or something that gives you the wrong result. And then we try to eliminate that. And that is what, we say we can avoid. We call it idiot proofing. Why is it going back? Yeah, okay, sorry, I was holding it the wrong way. So the goal is actually to enhance productivity, efficiency, and flexibility through continuous reduction of waste in manufacturing. Now, I've used manufacturing here, but it can be anything. It can be a hospital, it can be, it can be a hotel, it can be an educational institutions, it can be anything else. Continuous is the important word. It's not just solving it once. When we solve a problem once, we have made an improvement, come to a better level. That's not the end. That's when we search what else can we do to make that even better. And that is, what lean thinking and lean manufacturing is all about, or a lean business process. Just to give you, a little insight, I'll give you just a couple of examples. We'll take a manufacturing industry, we'll take a process industry. Now, I was given a problem in Indonesia once with an American joint venture company which had been set up there. This company had existed for 5 years. There were people, there was factory, the building was there, everything was there. People were trained in the United States. And after 5 years, also, they had not produced machine number 1. So, for 5 years, they had been doing their work, doing whatever they were doing, emitting carbon dioxide or, emitting some waste. So, using lean thinking, and I won't get too much into the details of what we did and how, using a dual strategy in play to solve these problems, we were able to get this factory up and going in less than 6 months. The factory was thumping out production. And then I was told this was a very, very prestigious American collaboration. So when this factory was fully running in less than 6 months, the president of the country with the ambassador from USA, the ministers, they all came, landed in a helicopter in front of my factory on the football field to come and see what actually had happened. So what had actually happened here was from just running to produce nothing and creating so much waste, now, and without capital investment, without funding the production, that means without the funds for the required cash flow, we were able to do this. And that was because of the dual strategy. One of it was to how do we source these components that we need to build these machines. And to source, we would need money to pay them. How do we pay them without having the funds with us? So this is where lean thinking and the idea of how to get down to every single micro process, identify what is required, what is not required, eliminate the waste, and make it so super fine that we were able to buy what we needed to build the machines from various people, get the everything that was needed in the plant, and a lot of it had to come from overseas, that means including the shipping time, build the machine in a very specific time, test it, and then deliver it to the customer, receive the money, and pay the suppliers. All of this to happen in less than 30 days. So it took about 7 days to bring in everything. It took 2 days to build the machines, test it, run it, and deliver to the customer, collect the money, sit with it for the next 2 weeks, and then pay the supplier. So how much do you think, when you think of this, in terms of your carbon, how much of it would have actually been saved? Because it's just not about the machines that run. It's just not about, one thing or the other thing. It's not just at one location. It's at multiple locations. And where everything had to be done with, certain speed, high velocity. And that would save. So that's one of the ways how, if you really become lean, you can actually save a lot of this. Another example from a tier 1 industry here in India, supplying components to all the big automotive chaps here. So when I was shown the problem, the factory was like, I have a thumb rule, right? When I go to a factory and see, if the factory has more than 10% of the factory floor occupied by components or inventory, it's not a manufacturing place, it's a warehouse. So when I looked at this place, this less than 30% of the factory was workspace with machines and people assembling things. More than 2/3 was inventory. So we went to work, again. So you imagine, like, if that is the kind of scene, how much of wastage would be there? When you talk of inventory and when you talk of wastage, inventory has to be produced, for which you use power. The power that you utilize is you're not able to sell that power to your customer because you're storing it in the form of inventory. And you keep accumulating this. That means you keep wasting and wasting and wasting, or producing carbon and carbon and carbon. And then there is, this is the way how you create a lot of what is not wanted. So when we got down to this, to cut the story short, there are a lot of things to be done to solve this kind of a problem. But on that day, now, finally, what was the factory able to do? Every day they would receive an order from their customers saying the customers want certain number of assemblies each day. Customer A, B, C, and D, they would give certain number of assemblies of a particular type, what they wanted. So this would be known to them in the beginning of the week. Now, the way this whole thing was set up using lean thinking is what the factory needs to produce and deliver today. The night of, before the morning, that is the night of the previous day, the raw material would come in and the raw material would go to the place where it was required to be worked on. There was no store. The raw material would get worked on, and where assembly was required would get assembled, and in the night, it would go to the customer. So the owner of this factory would come in the morning and go home at night with a clean shop floor. Now, can you imagine in terms of carbon efficiency in this kind of an operation? This is not the end. There are other things in lean. You see, lean constitutes of two major things. We call two big baskets. One is just in time and the other is Jidoka. Jidoka is more related to the quality aspect. Just in time is a basket of tools and techniques, and there are more than 98 or 99 tools and techniques that are available to us in lean that we use. A lot of these tools and techniques are like the software in your computer. They are connected, and you can't use one or two by randomly picking them up. Unless you use the complete network that is connected, you won't get the best possible results. So if you do this, then any manufacturing plant can become as efficient as the example I just spoke to you about. And there are such factories working. I had seen Toyota does train its suppliers, and I had seen some of Toyota's factories which came very close to this, Toyota suppliers. So that's another way how you can, actually save a lot of carbon emission, because in various processes there is, carbon that is being emitted. A process industry, cotton, textile, technical textile industry. So when we first walked into this place, this factory was also it's here in India, it's also in existence. It was running for 5 years and newly installed plant, hundreds of crores of investment, but they were not able to produce. And factory used to run 24 hours a day, consume power, produce nothing, almost nothing. So again, using everything that we've got in the lean basket, this factory started running from not being able to make money in 5 years. In the 7th or 8th month, they became operationally profitable. And thereafter, they started to grow. In a very short time, I think they grew in terms of turnover, about 20 times or 25 times, something like that. So if you convert this into thinking, like what would they be doing in terms of everything that they would consume, all the machines, all the equipment, and there's a lot of power. Textile machines require a lot of power. And when you run them and you don't produce anything, you are generating nothing but waste. And when you think lean and you think how can you make things more efficient and more, productive, etc., you actually can save a lot of your carbon emission, etc. So how does this principle actually work? What we do is we start to define, the value that the customer expects you to deliver, or the value that you want to deliver to your customer. Now, value is not an easily understood thing. Most people understand value as quality, cost, and delivery. But if you read the research work of C.K. Prahlad or Dr. Hamel, they talk a lot of things about value, and they explain why most customers can't actually define what value they want you to deliver. But one simple way to look at value is, how do you want to differentiate yourself from your competitors? How do you want to beat your competitor? Not just talking about the quality, cost, and delivery. Now, this is like a given platform. Everybody can do this. So when you identify that, then develop the strategy how to deliver that. If you have difficulty with that, you can even consider the product that you are making as the value that you want to deliver. You want to deliver that product successfully to your customer, right? As an organization, if you go to your customer, you identify the need of your customer or the problem that your customer has. You want to solve that problem and give him a solution. The solution can be in the form of a product or a service, whatever it is. Now, this actually goes through various stages. You need to design the product. If the design does not exist, you need to design it. And then define how are you going to produce it. So every single aspect of this, from the customer till the last point when you deliver, how are you going to do this? This needs to be designed. This is the basic strategy of how your business process is going to run. And when you design this business process, if you are able to get deep down into every single process, every single microprocess, including defining, the charts that need to be there, the checklists that need to be there, the reports that need to be there, everything, standardized, nothing other than that, nothing extra, nothing unwanted, because every person can come out with, his own thinking saying, I need this, I need this, I need this, and a lot of it may not really be useful. So, design, and then once this is designed, then what do you do? In the implementation, you have identified various necessary steps, and when you look at what necessary steps, you try to eliminate everything that is not required to be there. It requires a lot of deep thinking. And one of the things that will help us here is to think of it in terms of flow. Now imagine a river flows from upstream to downstream. And the river flow means it does not stop. And we got to think of every process, whether we look at a hospital, whether we look at manufacturing in similar way. If you take a hospital example, now a patient comes into a hospital, and a hospital, what does the patient want? Patient has a particular problem, wants to meet a particular doctor. So let's say the patient needs to go through to reach the doctor. So there are various steps before the patient actually reaches the doctor. How efficient can this be made? There's a lot of waiting time, there's a lot of wastage of time here. And then the doctor examines. You need a blood report, you need an X-ray, you need a scan, and then maybe you need a surgery, recovery, and go home. Now, how can you connect all of these so that everything happens without, loss of time, wastage of time, just to make things more efficient? If the patient needs to travel between these from point A to point B number of times, now there's a lot of wastage there. So these are very simple examples, but then these are the ways of how one can think through every process and eliminate. Every step that you eliminate, which is not required, you save something, and you get, in some direct or indirect way, carbon saving too by that. The way to think is, in an interconnected way, not in terms of silos, not in terms of single processes and making them efficient. Now, somebody here from component manufacturing will understand this. If you take a particular cycle time for a particular component to be made, now you want to improve that. So you work out a way how you can reduce the machining time on that component, and you say, I've saved X number of seconds. Now, how does that help you? Does that really help you? Because there would be other areas that you would not have seen where wastage is being created, and this saving, although on the paper it will give you a saving, but it will not reflect on your balance sheet. And one of the things with lean is, when you work with this proper lean thinking, everything that you do, you will see it reflect on your balance sheet. Your P&L account will show the difference, always. We also, don't jump into a lot of sophistication straight away, because we have a visual tool we call as, visual signaling, where we use this to design systems which communicate visually. So it tells every next process what should happen, who should do it, without anybody telling anybody or any other form of communication. So we do avoid a lot of softwares that do this, just because it can be done in a more simplified and cost-effective manner. We call this as, visual tool or visual design. So if you look at a river, why does the river flow towards the sea? Sea is like its customer. It pulls. So flow will only happen if there is a pull, and the pull in manufacturing can be only from the customer side. Customer can be an end customer, or the next process is the customer to every previous process. If there is no pull and we are trying to push from the back, what happens? If you take a thread and lay that thread down here and try to push it from one side, it crimples. And that crimple is nothing but the wastage that you get in the form of your inventory. You would have used a lot of resources to produce that wastage, but you are not able to deliver it to your customer straight away. Whereas you go to the front end and you pull. Every inch of the thread you pull, you're delivering it. That's, a big difference in how we think in lean. That's also how we convert stationary inventory into flowing inventory. The example I gave you of that factory, which had, 3/4 or more than 2/3 of it was inventory, where everything disappeared to become zero. This simple thinking was used there. No push, just pull, and just do what the customer wants. So that's how you become efficient. And when you become efficient, everything reduces. All contributors to your carbon, directly or indirectly go down. Lean is a journey. It's not a destination. At no point in time does anybody become completely lean. Even Toyota today will not call themselves lean. They will, strive to find problems that exist and they want to solve them to become even more lean. So what we do is we repeat this cycle over and over again, every day, many times a day if required, and become more and more efficient. And in this process, we are identifying everything, all inefficient motors, inefficient systems, idle power consumption on equipment, how to make that better, A to Z, everything, even the waste treatment, everything, carbon emission is part of it. So we measure everything and then we try to identify what are the contributors, where does it begin, how to plug that, or can we design a process where we can overcome that altogether. So when you imagine when you save your throughput time by 95% or even more, how much of your carbon emission you would have saved. Throughput time is like what does your product take from start to finish. If your product is taking from start to finish, let us say, one worker, if he goes away from his workplace, then his value addition reduces, goes away. So everything would happen the way it should happen. An order would get executed, loaded onto the truck. Only then the sales department would do an invoice, and there was no supervisor or manager involved in between. We treated them as interference and not as anything that would facilitate the process of manufacturing. Now there is a trick in this. The trick in this is to hone this system and set it up such that the workers are able to handle this. They should understand. And all signals, everything that was communicated was visual. The guy has to see and understand what he has to do next, just by seeing. And there is a way, there is a technique, there is a methodology, it's available to us by doing that. No software involved. In fact, I did not even have one machine with PLC. Everything was completely manual. So somewhere in 92, I think, Toyota came to India. They went to different people, whoever had invited them. They did come to us. They were to visit my factory for an hour in the evening because we had an airstrip in Hubli. They were to land there, walk around the factory, have a cup of tea, and then they were to go to our head office, which was in Harihar, where my MD was waiting for them. And I was not in the factory that day, I was in Delhi. So I told my chaps, small thing to do, take care of them. They came, they were taken around the factory. Because the factory was completely on a visual system, completely, 100%. Nobody needed to explain anything to them. When they saw what they saw, they did not want to go to Harihar to meet my MD. They asked my chaps, can we stay here for some more time? We want to see more of this. So they were housed there. They stayed there for 3 days. They went behind every worker to see how does he understand what to do? How do these fellows solve their problems? How do they identify the problem? How do they identify what is to be improved? How do they do these improvements? How many times do they do this in a day? And when they saw that, they went back and decided, this is the company we are going to join hands with. And that, gentlemen, is the story of how Toyota came to India. Because what they saw was, as I call it, a poor reflection of what they did in Japan. And when you become completely lean, in any kind of process, it doesn't have to be manufacturing. It can be anything. Like I said, it can be software, it can be, hospitals, hotels, educational institutions, or any goddamn thing that is done. The lean business process, which will eliminate everything that is not wanted, saves you a lot of carbon, a lot of other things, a lot of money, and helps you make a lot more money as well. Thank you so much. If there are questions and there is time, we can, otherwise.
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful insight on the lean manufacturing. So we usually say change is the only constant.
Yes.
So with that being said, with 30 years of vast experience, seeing the shop floor for 30 more years, and can you talk about the one time you had a tough time that stands out bringing in the change for the better?
Oh, there is no one time. There have been a lot of tough times. You see, because when you want to change, and this is the basic work I do in, the hundreds of organizations that I work, it's a cultural change. And transformation is nothing but cultural change. In the process, we change all the business process, everything. You're dealing with people, and people come with a mixed bag, People are very comfortable in the way they are thinking, they're used to it, the way they are doing things. They don't want to be discomforted. Change disrupts their comfort. So there is no one.
Yeah.
There have been, it's a journey where we go through a lot of these difficulties, where mindsets, all of these things.
How did you strategize? Like understanding the psychology was part one, but then how did you strategize that implementation?
What I do is there's a simple trick in this. No talking. A lot of people do this mistake by trying to talk first of what they want to do a PowerPoint, do a presentation, and tell them this is this. I am actually quite opposite of this. I just take them through the process. Now, for example, if there's a particular process that is going on, modify that. Don't lecture about it. Don't justify why this is. Take them through the changed process. Now, the change process that we would have thought through would be a better process naturally. It will give a better result. They will see the result. I give them the credit for the better result. Motivates them. They continue, they practice. That becomes way of life. And then I tell them, what you guys have done is called this in terms of, all jargons or terms or whatever this and this and this is.
True that. That's what a true leader also does.
So and there is a lot of psychology that comes to play here. Yeah. I do talk about psychology. Creating neural pathways and stuff like that. But that not everybody will understand. There are some videos I show them, so pictorially they can understand what it is. I do use that. Not so much, but I do.
Thank you for that. And there's one more thing that I would like to mention. The most dangerous kind of waste is the waste we do not recognize. This was mentioned by Shigeo Shingo, a prominent figure in Toyota production system.
Yes.
So, with 30 years, how do you train teams to develop the eyes to recognize hidden forms of waste, especially those that have been normalized over time?
So, see, it's by taking them through a journey. This cannot be done through a PowerPoint or a lecture or, it's not done. You have to take them through that experience. Experience is the only truth, okay? That's the only thing that one can believe. So they have to be taken through that experience. And because I work with them, I handhold and work with all my clients, from the MD to the shop floor worker. So when I take them through that journey, they experience it. That experience builds belief. Can't teach like a classroom. These attempts have been made by college professors. They have written books. There are a lot of articles, publications, there are a lot of PowerPoints available. All of that is there. Use them, zero success.
Thank you so much, sir, for that answer. Anyone else?
I think, hi, I'm Dinesh. While answering her second question, you mentioned there is already, the better process and you can take your team and walk that process along with them. But let's say if I don't know what is the better process, right?
See, there is this thought of a better process starts by understanding that there is a problem. There is something going on. There is a problem. We understand what that problem is. Now we want to solve that problem. Solution to that problem may come through doing a different process. Correct? Then we think through that process. There is a way of how we do that. It's called brainstorming.
Mm-hmm.
And brainstorming, there is a particular way of how brainstorming should be done to be effective. So we follow those simple things and then we arrive at what can be a better process. There are certain tools also that we can use if required. We can map the existing process. We can identify what's going, we can measure everything in that process, identify what's going wrong, and then reimagine. You see, all the change and improvisation and everything that we are talking about involves the ability to visualize. Where do you want to be in the future? When you say better process, what will it be? What should it be? What are you trying to overcome? Right? So when we take that into account, we are able to design a new process for it. It's not difficult.
And what kind of tools are available?
Can we
To
park
map?
these questions slightly
Sure,
later?
sorry.
Because I think we are really running short of time.
No
We have two more
issues.
presentations.
Sorry about that. I will connect with him
Yeah,
offline.
please, yes. He's going to be
Thanks for
available.
opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, I know there's a lot of questions. Senior leader like Sanjeev sir will attract a lot of questions, and please be there around, sir, to help us clarify some of questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.